Have you ever asked yourself, just how happy are the residents of Singapore these days? Maybe you've seen headlines proclaiming it one of the happiest places on earth. But is that the full story, or just part of it? Today on infoSphere, we're peeling back the layers to discover how Singaporeans really feel about life in 2025. We'll explore 10 distinct dimensions of happiness, from personal satisfaction to cost of living, from mental health to societal trust, each revealing a more nuanced picture of life in the Lion City. If you've ever wondered whether a modern, ultra-efficient city equals universal joy, buckle up. The truths are richer, deeper, and sometimes more complex than you might expect. Life satisfaction is strong, yet not absolute. Singaporeans report a high level of life satisfaction. According to a recent Wellbeing study, roughly 84% of respondents say they are satisfied with life at this moment. That sounds very positive, and in many ways it is. This suggests that most residents feel their lives are going well. Stable homes, adequate income, safe environment, good public services. But the key word is most, not all. And even for those who are satisfied, there can still be pockets of worry. For example, while the overall satisfaction is high, only about 57% report satisfaction with the cost of living. That gap matters. It tells us that although Singaporeans by and large say, yes, I'm okay, there are significant caveats behind that okay. So in exploring just how happy Singaporeans are, we must recognize that high life satisfaction exists, but it coexists with underlying pressures. Cost of living and economic pressure. When we dig into the cost of living, a major theme emerges. Even in a wealthy city-state like Singapore, plenty of people feel strain. The same study shows only about 57% are satisfied with their cost of living. Breaking it down further, younger adults aged 25 to 34 show higher satisfaction around 65% with cost of living, while those between 45 and 54 drop to around 51%. So the happiness linked to economic comfort isn't evenly spread. What does it mean? It means that while Singapore's high incomes and strong economy provide a strong foundation, the high price of housing, food, transport and education push many to tread carefully. Happiness measured in stability becomes vulnerable when everyday costs rise. So to understand how happy Singaporeans truly are, we must factor in that economic pressure sits right under the surface of that satisfied life. Optimism for personal and national life. But global concerns loom. Another layer is optimism, and this is a mixed one. On the one hand, around 81% of Singaporeans feel positive about their personal future, and about 82% feel optimistic about Singapore's national future. These are strong numbers, reflecting confidence in self and community. On the other hand, only about 55% feel optimistic about the future of the world. That drop is telling. It shows that while many feel stable locally, the global storm clouds, geopolitics, inflation, climate change cast a shadow. So for Singaporeans, happiness today is buoyed by local trust and competence, but tempered by global uncertainty. A well-functioning city gives hope, but the wider world still influences how secure we feel. Emotional well-being and the generational divide. Numbers on life satisfaction and optimism are one thing, but what about how people feel day by day? Here the data show significant generational differences. For example, in the youngest cohort, aged 16 to 24, 51% reported feeling anxious in the previous week, and 58% felt worried. Compare that to those aged 55 and above. Just 16% of them reported feeling sad in the same time frame. What this suggests is that happiness in Singapore is layered. Older generations often report more emotional stability. Younger generations may have plenty of opportunity, but also plenty of pressure to perform academically, to achieve quickly, to social media manage their lives. So while satisfaction is broadly high, emotional turbulence is concentrated in younger demographics. True happiness for Singaporeans thus depends not just on the objective circumstances of life, but also on how people handle the subjective pace, stress and expectations of living in a hyper-efficient society. Global rankings, a dual reality. When we look at international happiness rankings, Singapore's story becomes even more nuanced. In the 2025 World Happiness Report, Singapore is ranked 34th globally with a score of 6.565 out of 10. That places Singapore high in Asia, second happiest country in Asia, according to one report. On the other hand, in the 2025 Happy City Index, Singapore is ranked the third happiest city in the world, after Copenhagen and Zurich. How do we reconcile this? The dual reality suggests, on macro country metrics, freedom, social support, life evaluation, Singapore still has work to do. But on urban, city-level metrics, governance, infrastructure, health, mobility, it excels. For the individual Singaporean, this means you live in a city that stacks very high for quality of life, but as a national citizen, you may still feel the pressure of things like work, cost, and social connection. Strong governance, safety, and infrastructure. Foundational, but not sufficient. One of Singapore's undoubted strengths is its public institutions. Safety, mobility, environment, healthcare. The Happy City Index report highlights that Singapore stands as a global beacon of economic prosperity, governance, and urban innovation. For example, the doctor-to-population ratio is about 2.8 per thousand. Citizens enjoy universal health coverage. The administration uses open data. Mobility is efficient, etc. Here's the catch. These foundational attributes give a very favorable baseline for happiness, but they don't automatically guarantee personal happiness. High standards of governance and infrastructure mean your problems are fewer, but they don't remove human pressure, ambition, social expectations, or emotional strain. So when we ask how happy are Singaporeans really, we must acknowledge that infrastructure and institutions matter, but the emotional and social dimensions matter just as much. Social connectedness and life balance, the missing links. One recurring theme is that Singapore may lead in institutions, but lags slightly in social connectedness and life balance. The World Happiness Report suggests that factors like belonging, leisure time, meaningful relationships, and life balance are key differentiators for the highest happiness nations. In the Singaporean context, we see younger people reporting higher anxiety and worries, cost of living pressures, high work demands. All of this points to a kind of busy but capable life, rather than relaxed and fulfilled. So while Singaporeans may say they are satisfied, the lived experience can involve late hours, competitive schooling or careers, and emotional fatigue. If happiness is defined not just by having enough, but by feeling good, the social and emotional dimension becomes the frontier for improvement. Young people and future generations, the untold story. Taking a closer look at younger Singaporeans, ages 16 to 24, report 51% feeling anxious in the last week and 47% feeling sad. That's compared with much lower levels of these states among older age groups. What this tells us is that for younger generations in Singapore, the environment is highly capable and efficient, but also highly demanding. From rigorous schooling to rising housing costs to social media pressures, their pathways to adulthood are packed with uncertainty and competition. When you ask how happy Singaporeans really are, you cannot ignore what the youth experience. If the next generation is carrying a heavier emotional burden, then long-term happiness becomes not just about what is achieved, but how it is achieved and at what personal cost. Economic success without guaranteed emotional returns. Singapore is often held up as an economic success story, and rightly so. But as multiple reports suggest, economic success and institutional strength do not automatically yield top-tier happiness. The World Happiness Report explicitly says that strong economy and safety are not alone sufficient. Social trust, life choices, work-life balance, meaningful relationships matter. The data in Singapore reflect this. Even with excellent infrastructure, many residents still report concerns around finances. About 47% say they worry about their financial situation, and health, about 36% worry about physical health, 26% worry about mental health in that study. Thus, the message is clear. For Singaporeans to feel more than just okay, the emotional, relational, and balanced pieces must align with the economic ones. What lies ahead, and why it matters. Finally, Looking ahead, Singapore has a lot going for it. High trust, good governance, advanced infrastructure, strong economy. But the story of happiness in 2025 shows that maintaining and improving well-being isn't just about building more, it's about the human dimension, connection, freedom of choice, emotional resilience, life balance. For Singaporeans, the challenge is not simply to survive or do well, but to thrive. That means policies and societal norms that emphasize mental health, flexible work, meaningful community connection, and equitable access for all age groups. So when we ask how happy are Singaporeans really, the short answer is quite happy, but not uniformly and with important caveats. The longer answer is that their happiness is evolving. If they can shift from high satisfaction under efficient systems to deeper fulfillment in human terms, then Singapore could move from well-run to well-lived. So there you have it. On infoSphere, we've taken a deep dive into what happiness looks like in Singapore in 2025. We've uncovered strong satisfaction and world-class infrastructure, but also generational pressures, economic stresses, and emotional challenges. Happiness isn't just a score or a ranking. It's the daily rhythm of life, the support we feel, the freedom we experience, the rest we find, and the hope we hold. For Singaporeans, the foundation of a great city is solid, but the work ahead is about making that city truly feel like home in every human sense. Thanks for watching, and if you found this exploration insightful, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell on infoSphere. Until next time, remember, happiness is not just where you are, it's how you live.